हरे कृष्णा माता जी।
हरे कृष्णा।
Okay. So we are.
Prabhuji.
Prabhuji.
Prabhuji, can you please share the screen? I can see it better, probably.
You share the screen.
Yeah, from a computer.
Okay. Let's start with Guru Parampara prayers. Every time. So during my taking my prayers, you can meditate upon your spiritual master's feet, and then we'll start into the next verses of our classes. So Upanishad. So we'll start with prayers first, and then we'll go on to the next topic. Om Asmadgurubhyo Namaha. श्रीशैलेशदयापात्रं दीवत्यादिगुणार्णवं यतीन्द्रप्रवणं वन्दे रम्यजामातरं मुनिं लक्ष्मीनारसमारम्भां नादयामुनमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्परां यो नित्यमच्युतपदाम्बुजयुग्मरुक्मा व्यामोहतस्तटितराणि तृणाय मेने अस्मद्गुरोर्भगवतोऽस्य दयैकसिन्धोः रामानुजस्य चरणौ शरणं प्रपद्ये मातापिता युतयस्तनया विभूतिः सर्वं यदेव नियमेन मदन्वयानाम् आद्यस्य न कुलपतेरकुलाभिरामं श्रीमत्तदङ्घ्रिगुणं प्रणमामि मूर्ध्ना भूतं शरस्य महदाह्वयपट्टनाद श्रीभक्तिसारकुलशेखरयोगिवाहान् भक्ताङ्ग्रेणुपर्कालचेन्द्रमिश्रान् श्रीमत्पराङ्कुशमुनिं प्रणतोऽस्मि नित्यं गुरुमुख्यब्देतुलाशुक्लपदमे स्वातिवे शुभे प्रादुर्भूतं गुरुं वन्दे श्रीमन्नारायणं मुनिं नारायणार्यतिशेखरपादभक्तां गोपालदेशकरसमस्तबोधं श्रीजानकीजनाकृतमानसाभ्यां नारायणहरिपरिमहं प्रपद्ये कास्यपानसञ्जातं नारायणपदाश्रितम् श्रीमन्नारायणं वन्दे यदीश्वरश्रियादिशम् ॐ अस्मद्गुरुभ्यो नमः व्यासं वसिष्ठनप्तारां शक्ते पौत्रमकल्मषं पराशरात्मजं वन्दे सुखदान्तपोनिधिं व्यासाय विष्णुरूपाय व्यासरूपाय विष्णवे नमो वै ब्रह्मनिधये वासिष्ठाय नमो नमः। Welcome you all. Today we should say that we are very lucky. The reason is today verses from verse 10 to verse 14, and all the 5 verses, every time you see a verse, they talk about the spiritual masters. They talk about the parampara in the reason behind why the Veda has to say this word, why the Veda has to confirm that this verse or this action has to be performed like that. And it says the reason I am telling you this because our elders, our preceptors, our spiritual masters have said this. And the reason why I am saying lucky, because yesterday being Guru Purnima, which is the best occasion, after getting the mercy of spiritual masters yesterday and honoring them, doing our showing our gratitude to them, and today we are discussing about Upanishad, which is like a very very auspicious thing. We have to be very lucky to learn Upanishad in the first place, and that too yesterday we show our gratitude to them in being offering our obeisances to them or doing any puja if you can to their sandals. So after doing that, and today we are discussing the best of the Vedanta, which is Isopanishad. So we'll move forward from first 10. So before going there, because yesterday is Guru Purnami, which is the day for Teachers' Day as per Vedic tradition. Nowadays, Teachers' Day is Sarvepalli Radhakrishnan birthday, but generally should be yesterday to glorify our teachers or to show any gratitude towards them, because they are the ones who are helping us, either in this world or in any other way, in the material teachings or anything. So teachers has to be glorified yesterday as per the Vedic system. So since it is yesterday, so today I thought of congregationally glorifying them, and then we'll go into Upanishad. So let's talk about I'll tell you an analogy, and from there we'll go to the actual sloka of the slide. In previous days there used to be wells. Nowadays there are wells, but not constructed well. So now there used to be a well where they can draw water from it. So there used to be a pulley, and from pulley there used to be a thread, and from thread and there's a bucket, and there's a hook at the end of the pulley thread, and that used to hold the bucket, and we used to draw the water from the well, and they used to pull the thread. So the person who is pulling the thread will be at the one end, and the bucket will be in the well, and the water will be in the well, and the hook is the one which holds the bucket. To form the thread, there will be many links. There will be one link, and then again another link, and then again another link. But who is actually pulling the bucket? The last hook. And who is the person who is the pulling it? So the person will be pulling the bucket, and the water will be coming out. So in that analogy, if the bucket is us, and the well is samsara, and the hook is our spiritual master, and the person who is pulling is Lord, who is the first Guru, and all the links which makes it up until the end point to our Guru are the preceptors. So right from Vyasa to all the chain came down, forming a very strong link, holding us and pulling it up. So who is responsible for us to uplift it? Is it only the last hook that holding us? No. It is all the strength and effort put by all the links or the preceptors or the spiritual masters before them to form the chain without having any break in between, right from the Lord to us. So the glory has, and all the culture, the Vedic system, the knowledge is being passed, tightly linked and coupled together, so that we can be uplifted. So that is what you have to understand. So today we don't much talk about spiritual masters, but to glorify them, I got one nice sloka. First of all, I will recite the sloka, and then one line I will recite, then you can follow. Just to make you familiar of how the sloka goes, I will recite once, and then we can recite each other together. Papandakara arka paramparabhyam tapatraya hendra kageswarabhyam jagyadi samsoshana vadayebhyam namo namah Sri Guru Padakabhyam. So that is the sloka. I'll recite, then you can follow. Papandakara akka paramparabhyam tapatraya hendra kageswarabhyam jagyadi samsoshana vadavebhyam namo namah Sri Guru Padakabhyam. So the meaning is here: salutations again and again to the sandals of my Guru, which are like the seas of suns driving away the sins of darkness, which are like the king of eagles driving away the cobra of miseries, and which are like a terrific fire driving away the ocean of ignorance. So the power of these sandals of spiritual master, we are not talking about the spiritual master himself. That is the power the sandals itself has got. That is a very famous sloka in general that everybody recite. So the picture there was Vyasa. We all know Vyasa is an incarnation of Lord himself. Lord came himself to give us. So there is so much of Veda, and everything was like a lump. Nobody could understand where to follow, where to end, where to start, where to begin with, and there is a lot of confusion there. But still they are practicing it. It's being propagated until Vyasa came. So Vyasa came, and he himself divided them into two parts basically, which is called Karma Kanda and then Brahma Kanda. Karma Kanda talks about all the rituals, and Brahma Kanda talks about who is responsible for giving all the benefits when you do the rituals. So that is the Lord. The Lord is the one who gives all the benefits when you do some activity. So it talks about the activity, and then the other part talks about the person who gives the activity. Gives the boons or benefits or whatever. So Vyasa has got one disciple. He's called Jaimini. He said, Jaimini, you write the commentary or the way for the Karma Kanda. So to practice something, Jaimini wrote everything in place. He put everything in place. So he said, this way you have to follow. If a baby is born, follow this. If marriage is happening, follow this. So he gave commentary on that. So Vyasa himself thought, instead of giving to somebody else about the Brahma Kanda, I should write it. So that is the love towards us. Why to delegate that job, which is very important? So the Lord himself took the work, and went on writing the commentary of the Vedanta, which is called Brahma Kanda. And the commentary is called Brahma Sutra. So there are, the sutras. We keep on saying Adato Brahma Jignasa. So there are 560 odd sutras. So those are like bullet points to the Vedanta. And great acharyas, they wrote commentary on those Brahma Sutras, which was Sri Bhashya, Govinda Bhashya, or Shankara Bhashya. So they write commentaries. Bhashya is commentary. So to explaining how these were given by Vyasa to us to understand Lord. So Vyasa himself took the pain, took the work of giving us the benefit. So I think this is a very good occasion to glorify Vyasa and all the preceptors, like I explained before, the chains who are responsible for uplifting us. If we just say the hook is responsible for uplifting them, it's not the right way of understanding it. It's not the hook, it's the complete chains which are coupled together to uplift us. So yesterday was a very good occasion, and I wish everybody has got a chance to glorify the spiritual masters. So now we move on to our general class, Upanishad class. A very quick recap on until what we have studied or what we have learned until now. So right from the first verse to 9th verse, God permeates all living entities. One who has this knowledge will not have any discrimination towards other living entities. Verse number 6 and verse number 7 talks about this. One should realize that there is Brahman everywhere and also in his own self. This is the knowledge of the Brahman, the knowledge that this world is the embodiment of Brahman. That talks about verse number 1 and invocation mantra, and even verse 6, verse 7 talks about this. Such a person does not suffer from death or decay, nor does he fall down from his status. He attains liberation from his worldly bonds and lives in divine presence. So this is the summary of verse 9 and verse 8 put together. So I think we came up to here, and then we concluded, finally understanding that, but many are not able to attain moksha or oneness with God because they are not aware of this truth. What is the truth? That those who believe that vidya or knowledge alone enables them to attain divinity, or those who consider that karma, performance of deeds alone, can lead them to divinity. Both fall into the bottomless darkness of ignorance. So last verse, the verse before this, we talked about two entities, action and knowledge, vidya and avidya. So we talked in detail of those two things, and we also concluded that just following rituals alone without understanding what is the meaning behind it, or who is the sole proprietor of doing this, and who is the sole owner of having this when we do an activity, is something like doing something and you get benefit of it, but you never understand that this is going to lead you to any devotion or any progress in your devotional life. That we understood. And next part we also understood that just having the knowledge itself is not sufficient. See, for example, when we keep on saying the jnanis or the persons who meditate too much is not the right path of devotion. Why do we keep saying that? We all know this, that jnanis, the so-called jnanis, they are not, or that path that is taken by them is not the complete path, and we know that it's not complete path, and that path doesn't lead to the ultimate goal. And why do we keep saying this? Because they got the knowledge, no doubt about it. They got a very good knowledge about the things, better than us sometimes. But they don't put that into action. They keep on meditating. When we know something, or when we know how to do things, we have to put that into action. Or the knowledge that is, it's a very, very simple underlying principle. Any knowledge that is not put into action is worthless. We have to put that into action. That is the sole purpose of having knowledge. Once I asked my spiritual master, how much knowledge should I learn? Or how much should I learn? He said very simply, there is no limit of learning, but you understand that as much as you learn, try to put that into action. If you can't put that into action, then don't learn further. You put that into action, how much you learned. Only then you go to the next step. Not that you don't keep learning, and don't put that into action. That doesn't lead to anywhere. So that also we understood in the last class. And we got some examples also before. Why Bali Maharaj got Lord himself to come to him, and why is that other demons got killed by Lord, and why was God so ferocious when they are killing him, and why Trivikrama or the Vamana avatar is always smiling in front of Bali, weak demon. We also discussed those in good detail. So then we understood finally that these two have to be coupled together and to be done. So when we perform an activity, there should be the knowledge that should be driving it, not just the action or anything else. And the action should be selfless. Only then that will lead you to progress in your spiritual life. Or else, if you don't put together, then they are gone. Then there is no use of it. That's what we concluded in the last class. So, again, we start reciting all the verses. It's a good practice that we recite the verses. So today we recite until 14 verses. In the next class, we complete Upanishad. So next time we keep reciting like that. So we come to a point of completing the Upanishad. So we are so great. We are completing Upanishad. Generally, people don't say that we completed Bhagavatam, or Bhagavatam narration is end, or Bhagavatam discussion is end, is over, now we know complete Bhagavatam. Or the people won't say that. Or even Upanishad, when they discuss Upanishads, they won't say, oh, now we finished reciting Upanishad, or now we finished understanding Upanishad, because they're so vast and they're limitless. We only understood one aspect of them, or we only understood one point of it. It's like an ocean, and we understood only a drop of it. And even today, I was speaking with my other friends, and I even I told to Prabhuji also, Prabhuji, I'm not ready to give a class from the past 3 weeks. Because the reason is there are so many points to cover, and there are at least 6 different varieties I found to put the subject in front of the devotees. And everything looks like so complicated sometimes. So I wanted to refine it. So I sent all the slides to somebody else, one of my mentors, and he refined it. And he said, you only give one aspect of it, not all of them. And for one aspect, I took at least 1 week to understand how to give it. So it's so vast and so beautiful also. It takes some time for us to understand. So we can say we understood Upanishad, or we understood Bhagavatam, or I read Gita 100 times, or I completed Bhagavatam reciting 2 times in my life. I read Ramayana 2 times in my life. Ramanuja said, listened to Ramayana 112 times, and he said, oh my God, I didn't get a chance to listen the remaining 8 times because there are 120 versions of understanding Ramayana. The beauty of Ramayana is that if you understand Ramayana, there are 120 ways of understanding it. So his spiritual master, when he keeps narrating Ramayana to him, he got only 112 times of it. And then he lamented, oh my God, I couldn't get the remaining 8 times of it. And I can bet here, we couldn't even read Ramayana for 2 times in our life. Because we are so busy. We are so occupied. We are the most busiest persons in the world. So likewise, we don't say that if something is completed. We generally keep saying that it's not complete, we have to learn more. So we recite the mantra like every time we recite, and then we go into the class. So I'll recite the mantra because we all use this now. We keep reciting this every time. So I'll recite mantra, then you can recite along with me. Om Purnamidam Purnamada Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate Isavasyam idagum sarvam Yatkincha jagatyam jagat Tena tyaktena bhunjita Magruda kasya sviddhanam Kurvanneveha karmani Jijivishet satagam samah Evam tvai nanyate tosti Na karma lipyate nare Asurya namate loka Andena tamasavruta Tamste pretya vigachanti Eke chatmahano janah Anejadekam manaso javiyo नैनद्देवा आप्नुवन् पूर्वमर्षत् तद्धावतोऽन्यानत्येति तिष्ठत् तस्मिन् अपो मातरिस्वा दधाति तदेजति तन्नैजति तद्दूरे तद्वन्तिके तदन्तस्य सर्वस्य तदु सर्वस्यास्य बाह्यता यस्तु सर्वाणि भूतानि आत्मन्येवा अनुपश्यति सर्वभूतेषु चात्मानं ततो न विजुगुप्सते यस्मिन् सर्वाणि भूतानि आत्मैवा बुद्विजानतः तत्र को मोहः कः शोकः एकत्वमनुपश्यत सपर्यगा शुक्रम् अकायमवर्णवम् अस्नाविरं शुद्धमपापविद्धम् कविर्मनीषी परिभू स्वयंभूः याता तत्यतोर्धान् व्यधादा शाश्वतीभ्यः समाभ्यः अंधं तमः प्रविशन्ति ये विद्यामुपासते ततो भूय इव ते तमो यावु विद्यायामृताः अन्यदेवाहुरविद्याया इति शुश्रूमधीराणाम् येनस्तद्व्यचक्षिरे विद्यां च अविद्यां च यस्तद्वेदो भयगंसः अविद्याया मृत्युं तीत्वा विद्यायामृतमश्नुते अंधं तमः प्रविशन्ति ये सम्भूतिम् उपासते ततो भूय इव ते तमो यावु सम्भूत्यामृताः अन्यदेवाहु सम्भवात् अन्यदाहुरसम्भवात् इति शुश्रूमधीराणाम् येनस्तद्विचक्षिरे सम्भूतिं च विनाशं च यस्तद्वेदो भयगंसः विनाशेन मृत्युं तीत्वा सम्भूत्यामृतमश्नुते. So that completes the 14 verses. So we just have a quick look at what the last verse that we have taken, and then we go to the next verse. We have seen this slide before, and we understood the 4 different scenarios. We talked about Govindavata taking the thorn out of the snake's tongue, and we talked about Agnavalkya and Janaka, the greatness of Janaka when he was being taught by Agnavalkya the concept of soul and how he is so elevated. And we looked at Sukamaharshi, the son of Vyasa, and the episode of when he wanted to go away from from his father to in search of Lord. So Vyasa is running back, and we have seen that episode. And we have seen the episode of Prahlad Maharaj, how Prahlad Maharaj was telling to Hiranyakashipu that why to fear when the person who is in every creature is also in me, then why should I fear? So we have seen that episode. And then what a question there. What is common in all of it, in all the episodes? So then we have seen this question. So we found that we found that they envision God in every creature. That is the verse that we are talking before, the 6th and 7th and 8th verses, not 8th verse, 6th and 7th verses. They talk much about how should you see, or how should the person, when he sees God in every creature, be like. He will be always in peace. He won't differentiate. It talks about that he won't have any aversion towards any other creature. Even if he sees a snake or a person or a garden, he feels everything is same because he finds God in all of them. He says it's all representation of God. So that is what in all the four the devotees have seen. So then, to understand this better, I got a next slide which will go, and then we talk about what is common in all of them again. So this we know. It's on a beach, nicely built sand castle. It's again a small kind of small hill or a small fortress or whatever you call it. So what is common in both of them? The ingredients. I'm talking about ingredients. Sand. So now let's see the next picture. It's only one ingredient there, just sand, and they build these things. I didn't get a better picture. This is Koa, to understand what you call Koa in Hindi. Koa, you know this Doodh Peda, I think. So this is Koa, and this is Rasgulla. So what are the ingredients of this? I found two more. Milk, sugar and water. So the only one ingredient there, which is sand, we got two different structures. We can make many more. Just to differentiate, I just took two structures. Just with sand, I can just build a small hill and make a cave like a kind of thing with that. And with the milk, sugar and water, we got these two. And we got many more. To be frank, we can make hundreds and hundreds of preparations. So, just the proportions and the consistency of the sand and water there, it was like this. And just change a little bit of water and add some more sand and prepare a different batter, then you get that. And whereas if there are three more ingredients, then we got like this. Just little bit less flame, we end up with Koa, continuous stirring, we end up with Doodh Peda. If you don't stir and put that in a different way of approach, then we end up with Rasgulla. But the ingredients are same. So the milk, sugar and water are the same, but we ended up with two complete different entities. So likewise, if we add one more ingredient like rice, then we have more and more varieties. Like here we have like payasam, we have so many varieties you can prepare. So likewise, but still the basic ingredients are the same. Just the form is different. But if you track back and go back and reverse engineer them, finally we end up with only these three things: milk, sugar and water. A cook envisions milk, sugar and water. A chef sees milk, sugar and water. But when we see the taste in it. We see that they are different. We see that this is Doodh Peda, that is Rasgulla. This is solid, that is semi-solid. It's more tasty. It's also tasty when something is so hot. So we keep differentiating these things. But at the end of the day, when we see the basic ingredients, they are the same. And now let's see this one. A beautiful garden, let's say nature. And we got big planetary systems. And we got all the creations, all the creatures in the creation. What are the ingredients for this? Air, fire, water, earth, and ether. Anything else, those five. In a different proportions. In a, along with these five elements, like we got in preparing the sweet, we got fire. The consistency of fire. Sometimes we put for kova we put continuous flame. We keep stirring, and the pot has to be on all the time under the fire. But when it comes to rasgulla, it is not like that. We prepare paneer out of it and switch off the stove, and then make balls and put that into again a cooker. Again start boiling it. So it ends up in a different way. So the element of fire is not consistent. So likewise, in these three, the ingredients are the same, but the changing proportion is the time. Basing upon the time and basing upon the rasa, these are gunas. Satvika, Tamasa and Sattva Guna, basing upon the composition of those, we end up with either this, that or that. But still, the basic ingredients of the creation are same. You take whatever creation it is. All the material creation, the basic ingredients are the same. If you understand the basic ingredients are same, we can track with having the air, fire, water, ether and earth, we can track back until the point of sand. Even the sand is the composition of the same. Maybe sand is having more earth and less ether, less fire in them, but still the same. For example, if you take the planetary system, more ether, less other components. So it's just the proportion of the different compositions of the different elements that forms the creations or the differences. But yet we find the difference here. If we put something higher, we end up with planetary systems. If we put something different, we end up with the creation. If we put in the different proportions, we end up with creatures. If we put completely with the same those we got, and we prepare some sweets, we prepare some sand castles and everything. So understand this. To prepare the sand castle, all we need is sand, and also the person to prepare that. Is it not? So we need somebody who to prepare this. Likewise, in this sweet, there should be some person behind it. Like in the creation, there is a person behind it. So a devotee sees that person. Who is behind it? God is behind it. The creation is happening because of God. If I just put milk, sugar and water in three different proportions, in three different containers, will it become gulab jamun or will it become rasgulla? No. Somebody, the cook or the chef have to come and then prepare it. Sand castle, I put water and sand, will it form itself? Somebody have to be there. The reason I am stressing this point so much is, in the previous slide, which we are seeing Prahlad Maharaj or the Govinda Bhatta or any other devotee there, Janaka Maharaj or Sukha Maharshi, they envision God. What do you mean envisioning God? In everything, understand that it's also God representation. What does mean is this: they understood the person who is behind creating the snake or me is the same, or the person in the trees or in me is the same. In case of Sukha Maharshi, the person in me or in the kingdom, the people residing in the kingdom are the same. He is the same. He is the Lord.